Hello, everyone. Welcome to Stress Free IEP, the show where we help families build their village to raise their neurodivergent children with confidence and support. I'm your host, Frances Schefter, special education attorney, advocate, and fellow parent walking this journey with you. Each week, we shine a light on professionals, resources, and real world strategies that can empower you to navigate the IEP process and beyond. Whether you're tuning in live on Facebook or YouTube or listening later on your favorite podcast app, we're so glad you're here. Please feel free to ask questions live or in the comments section, and we promise to respond. Let's dive in and meet today's amazing guest. Joseph Kavitski is the head of school at Fusion of Rockville. Joe graduated with a BFA in film, photography, and visual arts from Ithaca College and earned his MA in art therapy from New York University. He formerly worked as a program manager for New York City-based nonprofit organization focused on serving at-risk youth, where he also taught and ran therapy groups in all 5 boroughs of New York City. He has guest lectured at the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan and served as adjunct faculty at New York University's Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development. Before becoming head of school, Joe served as Fusion Academy Rockville's Director of Admissions and Outreach. On a more personal level, Joe spent time working at a clinic for men with physical and cognitive disabilities in Ghana, and he is an certified advanced level Reiki practitioner. You will likely find him on the weekends hiking with his wife and son, rocking out to live music, appreciating local art, antiquing for unique curiosities, or enjoying a spicy meal. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here and have been a big fan. The stress-free IEP is such a great motto to live by. There's so much stress and anxiety in the world right now, and anything we can do to alleviate that is
Hold
really
on, sorry,
important.
I just lost sound. Ah, what is going on with my give me one moment and I will fix it. I don't know what's going on with my um system, but my AirPods decided to cut out. Hold on one minute.
I can hear you well for what that's worth.
Be back. Ah, hold on. Are you there?
I'm here.
Ah,
I can
there we
hear
go.
you.
Sorry, Joe. Technical difficulties. My AirPods decided to cut out and then I couldn't hear anything. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Just yeah, saying stress-free IEP, I mean, that's just beautiful and so important, especially navigating the challenging world of accommodations and trying to find the best resources for our students, especially those that need something a little bit different. So really, really fortunate to be here.
Thank you. And Fusion Academy has always been one of my favorite private schools because of the difference. Like you guys are so different than what else is out there. Do you want to explain a little bit about how Fusion is different?
Yeah, Fusion is such a unique school, and I really love working here. We're a unique type of private school in that we serve so many different types of students. And I think the one takeaway I would have for someone new that doesn't know what Fusion is that we really just believe every student learns differently. So we're trying to customize an education plan for every student that comes to us. And there's many pathways that a student can enroll at a Fusion school. So we're middle school and high school, and actually now starting to open up more towards fourth and fifth graders at certain locations. So we're expanding there a bit, but certainly middle school and high school. And we have a number of different options ranging from full-time options. Most of our students are full-time. We're an accredited school, so we would be the school of record. Student will graduate from us, get their diploma, and then go off to do whatever amazing things they will do post-secondary. We also do individual classes for credit. So sometimes a kiddo just needs one specific credit for a class, and we're able to offer that. We collaborate with a lot of private schools in the area, especially or homeschool families if they need an individual class. And then we also have tutoring options as well. So sometimes we're tutoring our own students, but we might be tutoring students from other, local public and private schools. And there's a lot of unique offerings that Fusion has too. We're typically known to be a school that offers one-to-one support. So one teacher to one student in every classroom. That's really where a lot of the magic takes place in our ability to personalize education for a student, because we get to know that student. They get to form a relationship with a trusted adult that only wants them to be able to succeed, where their complete attention and focus is on that student during that class session. And that's beneficial for students that are high performers that want to accelerate, as well as students that have learning differences, or maybe have some social emotional challenges. So we see a very wide range in our student population. There's not a one particular fit for Fusion. There's typically some sort of a way that we're able to work with a family no matter what their needs are. It's really just finding out what that is, and that might be in a full-time or a part-time capacity.
So I know, like, as private schools, you don't have to follow IEPs, but it sounds like the way your program is set up, it kind of is an IEP in itself, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of accommodations that you would see on a 504 plan or an IEP. There are accommodations for a reason. The student would benefit from having that type of support, either because of a diagnosis or a learning difference. A lot of what we do at Fusion is inherently just part of our program. What might be considered an accommodation somewhere else is just part of what we would do. So one-to-one learning allows for preferential seating, for example. Of course, you're going to have preferential seating. You're one-to-one with your teacher. But not only that, maybe sitting in the chair isn't the easiest thing. Maybe it's standing for the lesson or sitting on the floor, or a student might benefit from pacing around the campus a little bit. Those are all unique things that we're able to do that for us, it's not so much an accommodation as it is just seeing the student and meeting them where they're at. So there's a number of things that you might find in a traditional formal accommodation plan that we just inherently have as part of our school. And then just eliminating a lot of triggers that are not necessary. We don't have a bell system, so we don't have that loud bell or those, loud metal slamming lockers for students that have sensory sensitivity. We're able to just remove that. We have cubes where students can store their things. We'll use music, to initiate the change of classes, or just tell students, okay, it's time for your next class. It makes life a lot easier. And again, just removing that stress and anxiety. So certainly if the student has a 504 or an IEP, we want that information. We want to understand what has been recommended. If there's a neuropsychological report, we want to understand what the school recommendations are there. And that information would be shared with our teachers, because certain students are going to require scaffolding or assistive technology or unique things that we want to be prepared to know and be able to support. But a lot of what we do in terms of the accommodations, for our students are just an inherent part of what we do on the day-to-day.
Right. And so, it's one-on-one learning. So I know what people are saying are like, what about socialization? Like, how do these kids get socialized and learn how to function around other kids their own
Yeah,
age?
that's maybe the number one question that we get asked,
Okay.
especially being a school that's one-to-one. Well, what about socialization and how does that work? I can't quite visualize what that looks like in my head. And so, well, first off, the classes, if they are one-to-one, because we do have some small group options as well now, but if the classes themselves are one-to-one, it allows it to be more of an engaging lesson. Sometimes we'll see students that they'll say, wow, I didn't realize how much I would participate in a one-to-one class, because if they're in a classroom of 20, 30, or 40 students, it was easy to just fall through the cracks, not participate, not engage. They might be present, but not fully engaging with the lesson. Whereas if it's one-to-one, there's a dialogue and an exchange that's naturally going to happen in a natural back and forth. So being able to work with a teacher mentor that's modeling that exchange and helping to facilitate that, that in itself allows some students to just talk more and express more and have a more dynamic class lesson. But another part of Fusion that not many people might know about is that we have homework cafes on site. And a homework cafe for us is basically like a study hall. And we have two of them. So one is a quiet homework cafe or a silent homework cafe. The other one is a social homework cafe. And that's a class period that a student has for every one-to-one session that they have throughout the day. So say a student were to take an English class first period. Second period, they might have homework cafe. So that's going to be a great opportunity to get the English homework done for their class because it's homework time that's baked into the schedule, but it's also an important time that students can choose, well, what space do I feel comfortable in? Is it more the silent side where I have some more peace and quiet and I can better focus there? Or do I want to be on the social side? And students are encouraged to connect with other students that are there. So in that sense, I kind of consider the social homework cafe like a college lounge where there's couches set up, there's a table with puzzles on it, there's board games. You might see two students playing chess or battleship or cards. Other students maybe are having a conversation. Another student might have their headphones on. We might be making popcorn or something there. Students are able to bring snacks if they want and eat in that space. We might be playing a movie or lo-fi beats or something like that. So it does give students the opportunity to connect with other peers. Granted, we are a small school. Socialization's going to look a little bit different than it does in the larger, public schools or more traditional schools in our area, but that's inherent and by design. But students definitely still have the ability to connect with each other on campus. So Homework Cafe is one of those places, but we also have different clubs that happen during lunchtime. Lunchtime itself is an hour, so students have an hour to connect with each other. Our upper class students, they can have off-campus privileges. For the Rockville Fusion location, we have the luxury of being right by the Rockville Town Center, which is super cool. Students
Right by
can
my
go,
office, yeah.
yeah, grab some
Nice.
food, walk around
Yeah.
there, in a nice environment, and then come back to class. So there's socialization that happens there. We do different clubs during the lunch that are optional. So students don't need to ever feel pressured to engage in any of the social activities that we have, but we want them to be there for those that are seeking to build friendships and want that peer interaction because it is so important. And we make that student-centered. So every year we'll ask students, what are the ideas that you're interested in clubs? What would you like to see? And we'll test it out and we'll try it. So we, for example, have a plant club on our campus. I never in a million years would have come up with a plant club as my idea as a club that I would have thought students would have loved to participate in. But we have close to 200 live plants on our campus now that students
Wow.
help take care of. We've had one student do demonstrations on making macrame plant holders. We've done some community service with Brightview right across the way with us where students were working with older adults to paint flower pots and have done field trips to the botanical gardens all through the plant club. And that literally that seed was planted by students saying, we would like to learn more about this and what can we do? So
That's so
that's where a lot of
cool.
those ideas start.
Yeah, and that's so cool because it's just you can't say these are the clubs we're going to have this year. It's all like what the kids are interested in because that changes day to day or year to year, and depending on the cohort.
Yeah,
I
we
love
might
that.
modify it. So I like
Yeah,
Dungeons and Dragons. That's been very popular for
right.
recent years. That is a very strong cohort that will likely continue. Now there's been more interest in, say, Warhammer, those role-playing kind of games, developing their figures. K-wave and K-pop is very popular, anime, manga. So we have some clubs around that. We've done a cuisine club before, a theater club, art and music clubs. Right now, chess club is a new thing. So, it's ever evolving. And there might be anywhere from, a few students, a handful, a dozen students that participate in any of the clubs. But the idea is there's something that they can participate in where they can connect with others. Sometimes that's facilitated by a teacher, and sometimes it's more student-led. If we have some students that just have some interests in common, for a while we had a makeup club. where there was a group of girls who loved doing their makeup and wanted to bring their makeup into the campus. And we said, sure, you know, if you're done with all your work and you want to have some time together. So they had a structured time and they made a small informal club out of that and they had a blast. So, you know, for the students that are here, that's really one of the benefits too, is for students that are in a spot where they want to advocate for something else or something a little bit different to help them. We can oftentimes create unique opportunities, you know, in terms of leadership, public speaking, or clubs that would help them reach their goals.
That's awesome. And so with the homework club, so I didn't realize that. So so if you have three classes, after every class you have a period that's a homework club? Is that how it works?
Yeah, really good question. Not necessarily directly after every class, but in theory, we recommend a homework cafe period for every class. Now, that's not necessarily straight across the board. Some students do not need one for every class because the intention behind it is time that's baked into the day to complete your homework. If a student finishes their homework earlier and they don't need that last homework cafe, that might not be something that they necessarily need. So we would try to personalize their plan, you know, based on that specifically. Especially with some of our older students, they might have a part-time job or they might have something that they're doing outside of school where that might be a great incentive for them to get their homework done in one of their homework cafes. So that way they have more time to dedicate towards something else. But yeah, theoretically, we have a homework cafe for every 4 credit class that a student has. And the idea is that you have some opportunities to get your homework done while you're here at school. So hopefully you won't have to take it home. But also for some students, that's going to be socialization time. That might be, you know, for some of our students that have ADHD, it's a brain break. It's a movement break. It's an opportunity to just hit a reset or maybe take a little bit of a breather. We've had some students on the campus with some unique medical conditions and some autoimmune challenges, some chronic fatigue. They might be using their homework cafe to rest so that they're able to go to their next class. So there isn't necessarily a right or a wrong way of how a student should be using their homework cafe. It's going to look a little bit different based off of the needs of each student, but having that sort of flex time where they can socialize, get prepared for their next class, maybe look at some of their executive functioning things to make sure that they have their work turned in or checking their to-do list. That's really beneficial so that the classes just aren't back to back throughout the whole day. We've seen that that's really alleviated a lot of stress and anxiety for so many of our students.
And are there adults available if there's questions at the homework cafe?
Yeah, we have a homework cafe, well, basically facilitator, and that's our director of student life. So our director of student life on our campus, Alicia Barcombe, she's just fabulous. She's in charge of all of our programming. So she's putting the different events together and the social opportunities for our students. She's the one who's taken the polls of what maybe the next field trip might be that they want to go on. Making sure that we're having different celebrations on the campus. So we'll celebrate holidays and have different opportunities there as well. So Halloween is a big time for our campus in particular. We really like to decorate a lot. We'll typically have a door decorating contest, a costume contest, and a big party, and you know, different opportunities for students again to just express themselves or to have a spirit week where we can dress up in different themes throughout the day. So really just trying to keep it fun and student centered. But her and our homework cafe teacher are in the homework cafe. They're able to check in on students, provide some homework support, but then also help to navigate some of the social interactions on the campus too. So they're able to really connect with the students. And another unique thing that's a new development for us is that we now have a global neighborhood as well. So many students are making friends online. So many students are connecting via the internet. We want to make sure that students have the in-person connections available, but we also have a full, completely online community called the Fusion Global Academy. It's intended for students that maybe don't have access to an in-person Fusion campus or maybe even live in a different country. They can take fully virtual classes through the Global Academy. So as part of that, we have a global community. We call it the Global Neighborhood, where students can, in any of our fusion programming, click into their global neighborhood and they can connect with other students virtually. They have virtual clubs, they have a virtual homework cafe,
Oh,
they have all
cool.
different types of resources and contests and things. So really now students have the best of both worlds of connecting in person, or even if they want connecting virtually or remotely with other Fusion students. That way it's still monitored and under the guise of Fusion.
Got it. That is so cool. I love it because I've known about you guys for a while and I've gotten kids there, but I didn't know all of these details. That's so interesting. And I want to move to the homeschooling piece because I know a lot of my listeners are like, they're homeschooling now because there are no other options for their children. And Fusion is a little bit pricey for a lot of the community. And so what is the option you have for people that are homeschooling their kids?
Yeah, we're seeing more and more families choose to homeschool. I think COVID really, changed the way that everyone is viewing education. And we love collaborating with homeschool families. We have a number of homeschool families at our location, and I know the local locations as well. And the thing I would say for a homeschool family is that Fusion isn't an all or nothing type of a school. We certainly can be a full-time placement for some students, and that might work out amazing. We also have that ability to do those individual classes for credit. So we can do just one course with a homeschool family or any number of courses that work well for a homeschool family. We typically see it a lot in the sciences and the upper level maths. We have a
That's what I was
lab
going
on
to say.
site. So if a student's doing a lab science, they can work one-to-one with their instructor and they have access to the science lab. Or we have a tech lab with 3D printers and computer coding and robotics and things. So we have access to certain materials that maybe a family might not have access to, especially as a student gets older. But we have that ability to look at things from the course by course way. So if a homeschool family wants to do all of the, say, humanities subjects because parents feel really confident in that material, but some of the maths and sciences, I'm not so sure, they can take that at Fusion. And we make it really easy because we're still going to be submitting a transcript with whatever class was had, the grade that was earned, and the credit associated with it. So it's very simple for a homeschool family to just include that with their materials when they're submitting any of their homeschool paperwork. So that's one way a homeschool family can join, is just by the individual class. And another is by tutoring. We have been able to tutor a lot of homeschool families as well in a content area, or maybe to help locate some math gaps and then fill those gaps in. Or if we have the resources that a homeschool family is using, that's really, really helpful for us and for our staff, because then they know exactly, well, this is what the student's learning. This is what they should be doing. Well, let's focus on that. And they have the ability to go at more at the pace of the student. So if a student has questions around that, the teacher can spend some more time going through those things. So tutoring is a really, really great option for a homeschool family. The student's struggling with something and maybe needs a little bit of support, but we can also do things that are credit-bearing courses if that's more in alignment with a homeschool family and what they need. And again, that can just be one course. That can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 courses. We've had some homeschool families where they choose to be homeschooled, even though they're taking so many courses with us. Really, we could count them as a full-time student, but they want certain flexibility and certain things to bake into their program. And so, that makes sense. So I would say if you are a homeschool family and you are interested in something like that, just connect with your local Fusion campus and they'd be able to give you more specific information on what they can do for your student.
That is so good to know because I know, there was a hiccup. Well, with my daughter, I almost homeschooled this year. Knock on wood, she's doing fine now. But at the beginning of the year, transitioning from fifth grade to sixth grade is challenging for everyone. We know. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I can homeschool. I'm a former teacher. I have my special ed degree and stuff. And I'm like, but my kid is really advanced in math. And while I can do math, I'm like, there is no way I'm maybe able to teach calculus or something like that. And I know she would get to that level. So it's good to know that like you don't have to freak about the higher levels. There is a solution and there is somewhere to go that can help you with the subjects you're not as good at.
Oh, most definitely. And homeschooling is a really great option for a lot of reasons for a lot of families. You know, sometimes I'll see a family where they know that something is not quite working academically, but they're not sure what it is, so they're doing homeschool for that reason. So sometimes it's a great exploratory time to get more information and figure out what the best school fit is going to be as the next step. But again, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing sort of a situation. Homeschooling can offer so much in terms of flexibility and to allow different types of socialization or academic experiences. And so that's something I would say too, thinking of socialization and homeschool. If we have a student that's maybe amazing in the one-to-one classes and that's totally the best fit, but homework cafe is either just a little bit overwhelming or the student is in a spot where they're still developing their social skills, well, that's okay. You know, that can be something that's maybe a goal that we work towards. Maybe socialization is something that a student's choosing to do also outside of school as well. So we love it when some of our students are choosing to do recreational sports or unique activities. We've had a lot of students that are horseback riders that might need to be traveling at different times during the year for their competitions. We've had an elite golfer on the campus that would choose to be here as early as they could in the day and try to finish up their courses as soon as possible in the day, so that way they could work with their golfing coach and be on the green for the second better part of the day. And so that worked really well for that student. So it doesn't need to be that everything is done in-house. Actually, we're such a unique school in that we're able to put unique things together. So for a homeschool family that's trying to kind of pick and choose or parcel things together in a very specific way, we can be a great part-time option, to be included in whatever that looks like.
So it's interesting because I heard about scheduling. So what is the flexibility on scheduling the classes? Like, what's popping into my head is for our kids that have nervous system disorders that sometimes they just can't get out of the house to school. Like, how is that worked into the schedule? Or like you said, so it's not a you have to come at this time for English. It's let's figure out how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when a family is actually enrolling with us, we have a planning meeting specifically with the purpose to talk about the schedule. So every fusion location is going to be a little bit different, but typically fusions are open around 7:30 in the morning and are going to be open until at least 5:30 in the afternoon. So students aren't here that whole time, but their courses are scheduled within that framework. So the majority of students typically they want, an 8:30, 9:30 start time, start a little bit later and maybe want to wrap by like that 2:30, 3:30 time, that kind of traditional school day. But some students are early risers and some, and especially those that are maybe getting tutoring because they might be enrolled in another school and have their traditional school day and want to do that afterwards, we're open a bit later till 5:30. So we have a meeting where we connect with the family and we talk through some of those things. So when we're pairing a student with their teachers, we're getting a lot of information. We're really cognizant of, well, we want that teacher-student relationship to be a really good fit. So we want to pair teachers that we think are going to be a good fit for that student. Certainly the availability of the time of the year is an important one. So we might be limited in terms of our schedules if a student is enrolling, say, at this time of the year. But we are open enrollment and rolling admissions. So we can enroll a student at any time of the school year. And actually, this is a very busy time for us, and we see a lot of students transitioning to us because report cards came out recently
Yeah.
at the end of January for many schools. So first half of the year is done. That could be a really great time to make a transition, and there's still time to salvage the school year before it's over. So yeah, a lot of different ways that we can work with a schedule, but at least for our campus, we try to look at, well, what are the unique needs of the student? If we know that there's a medication that a student is taking and that's really helpful in the morning, but it wears off by the afternoon, well, then it would make sense to try to schedule those courses when the student can be their best self, maybe early in the morning, right? Whereas we've had a student that had a really significant medical sleeping condition. That student would not be able to wake up in time to start at their other school, and then felt such tremendous shame and guilt around that, and was really embarrassed to walk into school late and all the attention that they would receive around that. So they would not go. And then the school avoidance and school refusal things started happening. Student would fall more behind, then anxiety was starting to build.
Right.
So it was this really vicious sort of a cycle where when we knew that, we were in a position to say, okay, we're just going to start your classes after lunch. Would that be enough time? That way you sleep in, you do whatever that you need to get that rest,
Right.
but we're going to push your day back as far as we were able to at that time. And that really helped that student and was really, really beneficial. So I couldn't say that we'd always be able to do that
Right.
for every student and every time of the year. But that's why we have a conversation with the family and we put the schedule together with the best degree of intention that we can. And that flexible type of an approach has really been helpful and a game changer for a lot of families.
Yeah. My brain just went, oh my gosh, staffing must be a nightmare. Like, how do you staff? Like, what are your teachers look like? Because that's the other thing. It's like, well, are these certified teachers? Do they know the subject? How do we know the teachers are teaching the content the way it needs to be taught?
Oh yeah. Well, we hire for heart, first off. I mean, our teachers are just good people who want to make a difference. And I think that also just goes a long way. Someone might look incredible on paper with their resume, but they need to be able to connect with a student in a one-to-one setting, right? So it's flexing a different type of a teaching muscle there. But we have all different types of teachers, because we have all different types of students.
Right.
So they're gonna vary in terms of their age and in terms of their expertise. We have a number of teachers that teach multiple subjects. And again, some of our teachers here, they might they need a minimum of a bachelor's degree, obviously. But we have teachers on our campus that have their master's and some that have their PhD. So, it's all going to depend on what they're teaching. We look at real world experience and how they're able to translate that into the class. We look at engagement, and we do mock lessons with our teachers when they're actually being hired to make sure that they're making appropriate interventions with members of our team, our admin team, our department heads, so we're acting as some of our students might, and our teacher candidates are needing to give us lessons so that we can see how they would interact in a classroom setting. So it's an important and a very intentional hiring and onboarding process to make sure that we have the right people here at Fusion. But what I would say is they just really care about our students. They know that they give some flexibility in terms of like their schedules and how things work, because that's what the students and the families need. And that's
Yeah.
just a requirement for being at a Fusion, but also the benefit of being able to see the reward of a student that maybe has really struggled or who has hit their wall or is going through crises and now finding their footing again and then coming on the other side of that is just a really beautiful thing. And that's even evidenced in the graduation ceremony that we have. We'll have an in-person graduation ceremony for our seniors that are graduating, and they're paired with a lead mentor teacher. And so that teacher will give an individual speech for every single graduate student. So every graduating senior has the opportunity to have a teacher speak on their behalf and be able to carry that with them for graduation. And that gives a lot of closure to the program,
Yeah.
but also is really, really important. I've been to graduations where there's hundreds or thousands of graduates and you stand and you sit and
Yeah.
great, you've done the thing. But even our graduation ceremony is personalized for each student that graduates with us.
That is so awesome. And I had a thought and it just went away. I hate when I do that. Oh no, that's what it was. Is that like that's the way. Like a good teacher, a really good teacher that has the heart and knows how to connect can teach any subject. It doesn't matter if they're certified in that subject. They can go, learn it whatever is what I was thinking, is that I've seen plenty of teachers that knew the subject really well but couldn't teach it for baloney because they didn't know how to connect with the kids.
Yeah, yeah, and that's really important. And we actually get a lot of teachers that love the ability to teach multiple courses. So a math teacher might not just be beholden to that one level of math for the full year. We have a teacher that can teach up to collegiate level math. So she can work with multiple students at different levels. She's also fluent in French, and her sister is deaf, so she can teach ASL. So for her, she gets a lot of joy out of being able to teach different types of things to different types of students. And so that's also something that I think makes working at a fusion school a little bit unique. But yeah, it has to be about that teacher-student connection. That's really where the magic happens. I mean, I just think of the own mentors that I had growing up. And, one of my favorite teachers was a chemistry teacher, and chemistry was not my favorite subject. But that teacher could teach and could reach kids, and I laughed and I had a great time in the class. And so he was able to rise up above the subject matter because he was just a great educator and he taught with passion. And so
Yeah.
that's an important part of the equation too.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I'm like thinking back to my days of of being in school and stuff, and the teachers that I connected with, whether I liked the subject or not, I did well because I connected with the teacher, and that's so important. So for families that are like, huh, this could be interesting, what's their best way to find out more about fusion?
Yeah, we have a lot of great information on our website. So you can just search for Fusion Academy or Fusion Rockville, and a lot of great information there. And then for anybody that's interested in connecting, we have an admissions team where you can just call the number and talk to someone specifically to see if this is a good fit for your student. Or feel free to reach out to the Rockville campus directly. Our director of admissions, Adrienne Cohen, is here. She can speak with anybody that would like some more information. We typically have an open house every month that families can sign up for, if they're just curious to take a tour and learn a little bit more of an overview. So there's a lot of different pathways. And again, it's not an all or nothing sort of a situation. We really try to understand each family's situation and what might be helpful for each student. So you'll be given time and attention to understand what might be helpful for you. We can give the just general overview of things, certainly, but really we're often able to customize a unique type of a plan for a family's unique situation. So the more we know about what's been going on at school, where some of the students' strengths are, maybe where some of their areas for growth are, their goals are, that's where we can start to become more creative and piecing together a plan that might really work for a family.
Got it. Application process, is it kind of a everybody gets accepted, or is there an actual application process and standards?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's easier to look at like the types of students that maybe wouldn't be a good fit for Fusion than the students that are, because we work with so many different types of students.
Yeah.
We're going to try to find a way to make something work if there's a family in need to the best degree that we can. That said, we do have an admissions process. There might be certain students that we might not be the best fit for them at a particular time. As an example, had a student come a couple of years ago where he was doing a trial session, and he kind of self-sabotaged the trial session and was doing some things in it that were concerning. And so talked with the student and said, like, what just happened there? And
Mm.
he was very open with me and said, I just don't think that, I'm ready for this right now. He was in another program and he wanted to continue with the program, and he and family weren't quite seeing eye to eye on certain things. And I said, okay, well, would you feel comfortable with me sharing some of what you're telling me with your folks? Because I'm not going to force you to come here. I think that your experience is really important. And if you're saying you need more time, like they should really know that. And I said, so that's what happened. And I told him, I said, listen, if things change, because right now is just right now, and things are going to change as time moves on. if you think that we are a good fit in the future, you let me know and we can have a conversation anytime. It was over a year later, and he reached out to me directly, and I remember picking up the phone, and he just goes, "Mr. Joe, um, I'm ready to come back now if you would, if you would consider having me there." And I immediately knew who it was. He didn't even say his name, but I remembered, and he ended up having an amazing senior year, and I mean, no issues at all. But he was ready, and he would be the first to say, yeah, at that time, I just wouldn't have been in a place, no matter what school it was. I just wasn't quite there yet. So we want to make sure that it's going to work. So, if a student does need a higher level of care, we'll be honest and transparent around that. We might be able to partner, we've partnered with IOP programs in terms of unique scheduling. And so I think the best thing is for a family that's maybe not quite sure, we'll be honest and we'll be transparent about what we can support or what we can't. We're not a true special education school. Sometimes folks think that Fusion is, and that's we're working with many different types of students. Often many of them do have a learning difference. And at the same time, what we're seeing in terms of our positive outcomes is often based off of the way that our model is and our approach and the way we're working one-to-one directly with the student. So if we do see that there's something else that a student, might need or might benefit from, it might be something in conjunction with our program where, again, we can do both. So main thing is to just, connect with your local Fusion. They'll be able to share specifically, what they're able to do, or, for your student.
Great. And you guys are nationwide, right?
Yeah, we have 80 plus campuses
Wow.
now around the country. And really, Fusion Rockville was the 41st campus
Wow.
back in 2016 when we opened up here locally. So, in just a 10-year period, really seeing the number of campuses nationwide double, I think is really a testament of just the need for alternative routes of education right now. The whole educational landscape is definitely changing. I
Yeah.
think the needs of our student learners are changing, the job market is changing. And so it's important that our educational processes and systems also adapt with those changes. And so that's why we're continually updating things, creating new offerings, and some of which I talked about today, and really trying to just understand how we can best support a student, as an individual and as a human being.
So yeah, I didn't 80 at campuses. That's great. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm so glad I had you on because I've known you, like, my office is down the street. I've been to Fusion a few times. But I didn't know the how many different options there were and how you can really work with it sounded like any type of student and any type of budget. Like it's not because I know people are like, oh, Fusion, that's financially no way can I do that. But it sounds like you work with the families to make it work. Like let's figure out a way to fit with your student and your budget.
Yeah, we really try to. I mean, if a student wants to take all one-to-one courses, I mean, we are a tuition-based school. That's the reality of that. And also at the same time, we do have different tutoring options. We now are looking at small groups, asynchronous and self-directed types of courses. There are unique ways that we can work with a family. So I think the way to think about it is, again, not an all or nothing sort of a thing. We might not be the school that's going to be the full-time school of record for every single family. And also that isn't necessarily a barrier to being connected with Fusion in some way. And we're often able to see really fantastic outcomes with students in a variety of different learning paths. And that's why they exist. So it's always helpful to just have a conversation with the family, see where they're at, and we do our best to try to put in something into place that's going to be helpful or beneficial, whether or not that's full-time or part-time.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming on the show and sharing all of your wisdom about Fusion so that our listeners can hear and see what other options are available.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for just doing the work that you're doing and creating, a platform for all of the different local resources because there's just definitely a major need for that right now. And it's just important to connect families knowing that there's different options out here and we have, an abundance of incredible resources in our community. So yeah, just thank you for everything that you're doing for our community and for our kids.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Stress Free IEP. We hope today's conversation gave you new tools, insights, or just a little more peace of mind as you support your neurodivergent child. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone in your village. Next week we will be having episode 132. Unfortunately, Andrea had an emergency meeting scheduled and will not be able to make it. And so instead we will be having a special solo episode. So stay tuned. You can always learn more and connect with me at schefterlaw.com or follow along on social media. Until next time, remember, you do not have to do it all alone.